Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to Podcastage. A couple of years ago, somebody asked me, when are you going to review the Samson C02s? And I thought a funny response would be, oh, I'll review them when they're vintage. And then I thought it would be even funnier to actually do that and not review them until they were vintage. So they sat on my shelf for 5 years, but as of the 18th of January 2023, they are officially vintage. So I have taken off my smartwatches, I have put on my Descendants baseball cap because Descendants were all I was listening to, and we are going to do a neo-vintage review. The high-quality video has now been engaged, the blank black background has now been engaged, and for this review, I'm running the microphone directly into the Focusrite 18i20 2nd Gen. My gain is set at around 3 o'clock. I'm about 8 inches away from the mic, recording 24-bit 48 kilohertz. I will not do any kind of processing, but I may have to boost it a little bit in post, so check the lower third or the doobly-doo to see what I diddly did. And now let's talk about what comes in the box. I forgot it was a hard plastic box. That's a stupid idea. On that note, you are going to get a hardshell carrying case. You'll get 2 microphones, 2 clip-on foam windscreens, 2 shock mounts, 2 5/8 to 3/8 inch microphone stand adapters, and a little bit of documentation. Then as far as the build quality, I really don't have any complaints about this thing. It has an all-metal shaft, a metal mesh grill which doesn't have any give to it. As we move around the microphone, there are no buttons or switches. On the rear, you will find the XLR port, and if it matters to you, this microphone is made in China. Next, as far as the specs, this microphone has a super cardioid polar pattern, a frequency response of 50 Hz to 20 kHz, a sensitivity of around -40 dB, a self-noise of 22 dBA, a max SPL of 134 dB, an impedance of 200 ohms, and a phantom power requirement of plus 48 volts. Now I am spinning around the C02 to 90 degrees to show you the off-axis rejection and coloration. Continuing around to 180 degrees, this is the rear of the mic. Continuing to the second 90-degree angle, here we are, and then rotating and ending at the front of the microphone. Now this is going to be really stupid, but let's test the plosive rejection. Please bring pizza pronto. Please bring pizza pronto. Please bring pizza pronto. Terrible. Now I am right on top of the microphone to exaggerate the proximity effect, and here is how it's sounding. Now I'm about 6 inches off of the microphone with it pointed at the corner of my mouth, and here is how it's sounding. About 1 foot away from the microphone, about 2 feet away from the microphone, and about 4 feet away from the microphone. Here is how the microphone sounds being underboomed in a well-treated room about 8 or 9 inches away from my mouth. Now here is how the microphone sounds being underboomed about 9 inches away in an untreated space. And here is how the microphone sounds being overhead boomed about 10 inches away from my mouth in a well-treated room. And finally, here is how the microphone sounds being overhead boomed about 10 inches away from my mouth in a completely untreated room. Even though nobody would do this in 2003, now I am typing on a keyboard with Gateron blue switches, which do not exist yet, to see how much of my voice versus how much of the keyboard it picks up. And for the elite gaming folk, now I am typing on the SAD W and spacebar keys as though anybody would be recording themselves gaming. It's 2003. Who would be doing that? Now here is how the microphone sounds in a well-treated room about 6 inches away from my mouth. And here is how the microphone sounds about 6 inches away from my mouth in a completely untreated room. Another thing that would make absolutely zero sense is somebody putting one of these C02s on a boom arm that is tied to their desk, but I will go ahead and test that as well. Now I am tapping on my desk to see how much of that noise the microphone and the shock mount reject. And then I will tap on the boom arm. Now, because I'm incredibly annoying, I'm going to tap on the body of the microphone to see if there are any kind of resonant frequencies. Now I want to see if the provided foam windscreen has a huge impact in the tone of the recording. Currently, you are hearing me speaking into the microphone without the foam windscreen, and here is how it sounds with the provided foam windscreen. And here is another sample speaking into the microphone without a provided foam windscreen. And for good measure, here's another sample of the microphone with the provided foam windscreen. Now, like I always do, I'm going to do a quick spoken word comparison between the microphone we're reviewing and a handful of other microphones so we can see how it stacks up against the competition and hear it in the context of the market. We'll start on the Samson C02, 6 inches away, gain set at 3 o'clock, and here is how it sounds. Now I am on the Rode M5. This goes for $200 for a matched pair, so $100 per microphone. I am 6 inches off, my gain is still set at 3 o'clock, and here is how this sounds, 2 times the price of the C02. What do you think? Let's go back and do some more comparisons. Back again on the Samson C02, nothing has changed. Check the lower third to see how much I boost each of these mics in post. Let's go to another microphone. Now I am on the SE Electronics sE7, which goes for about $110. I am 6 inches off. My gain is still set at 3 o'clock. And here is how this sounds compared to a microphone that costs $50. Let's jump back to the C02 and do a couple more comparisons. Again, we are on the Samson C02, nothing has changed. Here's how it sounds. Let's go to another mic. Now I am on the Sennheiser E614, which goes for about $200, still 6 inches off, gain still set at 3 o'clock. Check the lower third, and here is how this microphone compares to the C02. Let's jump back and do 2 more comparisons, I think. Back again on the Samson C02, we aren't doing a bunch of comparisons today, so we are on the penultimate microphone next. Let's go to it. Now I am on the Neumann KM184. This goes for about $900, and it is another super cardioid small diaphragm condenser, 6 inches off, gain still set at 3 o'clock, and here is how it sounds. Let me know in the comments. Does this sound 18 times better than the C02s? Because that's a big jump in price. Let me know. Let's go back to the C02 and do one final comparison. And you know what the final microphone is going to be, but first, Samson C02, 6 inches off, gain set at 3 o'clock. Let's jump to the final mic. And finally, we are on the Neumann U87 Ai. This goes for about $3,700. I am looking in the wrong lens. I am on the cardioid polar pattern because this is a multi-pattern studio condenser microphone, no pad, no filter, 6 inches off, gain set at 11 o'clock. This is not a fair comparison. This is a control. This is the Neumann U87 Ai. How does it sound compared to the C02? Let me know which was your favorite. Let's go to the music test. I'd appreciate if you would check out my live journal now. I just rented a tape and now I'll skate around my town. I'll get in trouble, but no one will find out, 'cause it's totally 2003, and at this time everybody is a bit busy watching the OC. Yeah. Just a bit out of my range and I was straining. This is just terrible. Let's not even talk about it. Let's go to the conclusion. I know I'm not a singer. Get off my case. Alright, I have to admit something. In order to keep up the bit and make like it was 2003, I printed out my outro notes so I don't have to look at a computer monitor because in 2003, computer monitors didn't exist. This doesn't make any sense. This microphone may not be the best sounding microphone, but it functions, it comes with a bunch of accessories, and it is dirt cheap. And first up, as far as pros, the microphone is incredibly affordable. It is $100 for a pair or $50 per microphone, and the fact that they even function at that price is absolutely bonkers. If I had access to these in 2003, which technically I guess I did, I just didn't know I did, my mind would have left my body. Secondly, it has a surprising amount of accessories which feel pretty decent. It comes with the hardshell storage case, it has 2 shock mounts, they give you 2 5/8 to 3/8 inch microphone stand adapters, hallelujah, and the windscreens aren't super duper effective, but they are decent, so I'm happy that they included them. And then as far as cons, you can guess what they are going to be. Number 1 is the very high self-noise of 22 dBA. That is going to become apparent if you're recording really quiet sound sources, if you're recording really far away, but I can even hear it when I'm monitoring 0 latency right now. So a self-noise of 22 dBA can become a bit problematic. And secondly, for a small diaphragm condenser, it does seem to have a pretty low sensitivity. Compared to the Rode M5, the sE7, and the KM184, this was quite a bit quieter. The only mic this was louder than was the Sennheiser E614, which is just mind-bogglingly quiet. I don't think the sensitivity is so low that your preamp noise is going to start to be an issue, but the lower sensitivity is just something that you should be aware of. And now, what are my overall thoughts and opinions of the Samson C02s? On the electric guitar, I think they can work, but I think you're going to be running uphill, going uphill both ways. They're a little bit difficult to work with. I do think the low end is nice because it is a bit rolled off, maybe a bit too much, but that means you're not going to have any issues with muddiness, making it unclear. Then you get more of a general mid-forwardness, but when we get to the upper mids, the treble and the air, that's where I think this microphone starts to show its price. It comes across really grainy, a little bit sharp sounding, and very unsmooth. And if you're doing any kind of aggressive guitar tones, I think that's where it will really start to fall short. Not my favorite for this application, but it can work. Then on the acoustic guitar, that is my favorite application for this microphone, but that may be my bias showing because there is something special about an SDC on an acoustic, and there's something even more special about a stereo miking setup on an acoustic. I just love it. It brings the instrument to life, and it's one of my favorite sounds. But as far as the tone, you don't get a super robust low end. It is very controlled, but it is going to lack body. Some people will love that, others will hate it. And I know I'm already going to sound like a little bit of a broken record, but it does come across a little bit mid-focused, a little bit mid-forward, and then in the upper frequencies, it is certainly not the smoothest. As I mentioned, it is a bit grainy, a little bit unnatural, but for $100 for a stereo miking setup, I'm pretty thrilled with the sound I was able to pull out of these things. Next up for singing, that is my second favorite application for this microphone. The lack of low end, I think, really benefits this microphone for this application because when you're mixing vocals in a mix amongst other instruments, you don't want too much bass, you don't want too much low mids because that's just going to make it sound muddy. So the roll off in the low end, I think, is a benefit here. Then we get to the mids, and I think it comes across a bit too forward, especially in the upper mids. It starts to sound a little bit unbalanced, and then we have that treble and air boost as well, and it comes across a bit crispy. It is not very smooth sounding, but again, $50 microphone. Not the best sounding vocal microphone, but in a pinch, I think it can work. You're just going to be, what was the saying I said? You're going to be running uphill. That's not even a saying. Why am I using that? And finally, for spoken word, I am going to sound 100% like a broken record. The low end is not overpowering, it is quite controlled and maybe a bit too rolled off, especially for this application if you want a bit of body. The mids are forward. I found it sounding a bit congested and a touch nasally, and then you do have the treble and air boost, which again, sound a bit grainy, a little bit sharp, a little bit unnatural, not the greatest sound, but for this application at a distance miking situation, I think it functions fine. You're just going to run into the issue with a bit of the self-noise becoming more apparent because you're miking at a distance. And to wrap up, would I recommend these Samson C02s? Kind of. If you have a higher budget, I think there are much better sounding and much better performing microphones that offer a more balanced tone and a much better noise performance. So if you have that higher budget, I would say no, I don't recommend them. If you are looking for SDCs to have an absolutely dead quiet recording, again, I would not recommend them because of that 22 dBA self-noise. But if you're working on a super limited budget, or your budget absolutely caps out at around $100, and you don't have any super strict technical requirements, then I think you're able to get some very workable sounds out of these microphones. Just keep those cons in mind and make sure you account for them when you are buying the rest of your gear. Alright, that is it for this video. If you'll excuse me, I need to go drive to the movie theater and watch Lord of the Rings: Return of the King while I blast 50 cents into club. What am I talking about? If you found this video fun, interesting, or helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Note to self, do not punch the camera mid-recording because you will lose the framing. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. There's a video directly beneath me if you want to see more. These people over here are amazing. They support the channel at $5 or more, and that is all that I have. I will talk to you later. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I love you. I will talk to you later. Whoa, whoa, boop!